Here.
Vice Mayor
Here.
McAuliffe.
Here. Okay, should we do the pledge? Joe?
Okay.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. How about we'll start with public comments? Is that okay with everybody?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So, Joe, can you start the public comments?
Yes.
Calling on speakers during public comment in random order. To our attendees, if you would like to speak, please use the raise hand feature on the Zoom meeting platform now. Attendees that have called in can dial *9 to raise their hand. Speakers will have 3 minutes to give their remarks. You will hear a tone when your time begins, when 30 seconds remain, and when time has expired. Once time has expired, we will move to the next speaker.
Okay. Need a moment to set up the timer.
Is Mike in yet?
No, I don't see him.
No, I don't see him on the attendee side either.
So I tried to forward him my link, and he just said he wasn't able to use my link because it was specific to me. Could someone send him a link specifically?
Yeah, I had Zoom resend it just a minute or two ago. I can do that again.
Madam Chair, should we take a break before we move forward then? If the city manager's not. Oh, there he is. Okay.
Oh, he's there? Okay.
Yep.
Is it okay to go ahead with public speaking? Yep. Alrighty. Okay, I see 2 speakers. First speaker is Eddie Homman. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Good afternoon, City Council, School Board, staff of the city. So I just have a short message today, and I guess I'll just start it off by saying that I want to thank the staff of the school board and of staff of the city for improving this MOU, this draft MOU, to kind of talk about the relationship between the police department and our students. I think that this draft is a marked improvement from the first draft. But I also think it's important to acknowledge that there's a lot of progress that needs to be made. And I think it can really be summed up in just, the activism that students have been leading over the past year. And it's that kids do not feel safe with police on campus. That's one factor. And the second is just looking at the data, from the federal level, from the Department of Education, from the state, and even data from here in South San Francisco Unified School District. There is very, very clear data that shows that having police on campus leads to worse outcomes for students of color. So I think that centering that, we need to, chip away at things in the MOU that talk about relationship building or alliance building, or, making, having police in schools to make them look better. I don't think that's not part of the mission of our school system. Our school system is to empower, nurture, and improve the education of our kids. It's not to improve the image of the police department. And I think that with that in mind, we just need to continue chipping away at those different relationship building activities that this MOU outlines. yeah, and I just want to, reference again, kind of the different organizations that have been speaking on the side of completely removing police from the schools, except for the case of emergency. That's the American Civil Liberties Union. Fly, who also does work with kids to try and take them out of the criminal justice system. There is a very large group of professional organizations that have really come out on the side that police need to be taken out of campus. So yeah, I guess I'll just leave it there and just, say, I really want to express my gratitude. I think that the staff and our elected officials have heard the people and have taken that into consideration when drafting this MOU. And I think it's better, but I think that we need to make it better for our students. So thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Marcela Rivera. Please go ahead.
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to say and call in that, the students, both current and previous students in our school district, have come out this past year and really expressed the need to get SLOs off our campuses. And I think that, if it really comes down to doing what's right for the kids, which I think is the priority for everyone in this room, hopefully, then you need to be listening to what the kids are saying and their experiences. I think at this point, it's best to just keep the suspension in place. We shouldn't be rushing into anything just to, sign off on an MOU and, pat ourselves on the back. Like the previous speaker said, there's been so many reputable organizations such as the ACLU and FLY who have written in and looked at our district specifically and the practices that our district and the SLOs have made in the past, such as, Black students in our district being referred to SLOs 12 times the average rate of like other students being referred to SLOs. And this is with the implicit bias training that the SLOs currently have. So I'm not really sure how anything will change by adding anti-racist practices when they're supposedly already aware of these implicit bias standards that are in place. So I think that this contract really just boils down to money and not really care for the students. I think that you're looking at how can I, keep 2 salaries for the police department going. And I think that that's not really showing care for the students, as the students have shown time and time again, their experiences and how this negatively affects them. And, national organizations have shown how the SLO program has negatively affected our students in our district. And, I think if it comes down to like, oh, legally, we need to have security at like, games and prom and et cetera, then you need to hire security guards that are unarmed and not able to, question and potentially send children to jail, because that is not what we need in our school district. Yeah, I feel like this MOU still does not go far enough to protect students, and it goes further in protecting, the district and the police officers involved. We need to be protecting our students and not letting them be questioned and interrogated by police, because that's like a traumatic experience. This MOU is just not enough. So thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Russell Lee. Please go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me here. I just wanted to talk about, like the MOU. Like I looked over the draft MOU, and like I also have been looking over like police reports that, have been filed at like elementary schools, schools in the district. And like just seeing the two, it doesn't really like add up. Like the MOU isn't explicit about, like police's like search and seizure policy for students. Like the MOU does not is not explicit about school, like how school admin policy will change on like when to call the cops, because over like the past like how many years that like I've seen in the police reports, like police come for like teachers call the police for like mental health, like they call them for like 5150s. They call them, there was like a case at like Sunshine Gardens where the principal called the police to admonish a kid with special needs because he brought a knife to school to show to his friends. Like, it's like things like that where like you need to be specific, and you need to, you know, like you need to have that like formalized, that like admin will not call, like, I don't know, like you have to embed that in the culture. It's not just like trainings that you have like once in a while or yearly. Like, you have to embed that into the culture, embed that into the relationship, that we will not call the police for such and so reasons, and the police acknowledge that. It's not just on the admin side. It's not just up to the admin not to call the police. It's also for the police to be explicit about, you know, not calling them for such dumb reasons. Because most of the time that like I've seen in the reports, like police are called for dumb reasons. The only times that police were called when like there was a stranger on campus, like they come after the fact, and then they write the reports, and then they're like, oh well, we'll keep an eye out, and then what? Like like most of the time it's for, you know, not like good reasons. And you need to be specific about, yeah, it just needs to, you need to have stricter guidelines. Like, we can't have like police constantly being called on our students by our teachers, by our admin, during and, you know, off of school hours. And like, it's something that we have to keep reiterating, but it's something that, you know, needs to continuously be said. So yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you. Next speaker is Liliana Rivera. Please go ahead.
Thanks for having me comment. I just wanted to basically reiterate a lot of the other points that other speakers have brought up. I see some of the changes on this MOU kind of like referencing some of the issues that we had with the previous MOU. But honestly, something that I still think is really lacking is the fact that there's still, that I see, that there's no way for these police officers to be held accountable if they're to do something wrong. Like, it seems like the only answer is just more training, but I mean, what is the motivation to change your behavior if there's no consequences for bad behavior? Like, that doesn't make sense to me. Like, we have all these consequences in place for children, the youth. They know that if they do X, like they're gonna get in trouble, like they're gonna get suspended, whatever. But there's no equivalent for the police when they are behaving badly. And that's really the issue, I think, is like children and families need to have avenues to make sure that officers are held accountable if they're doing things that they're not supposed to be doing. Otherwise, it's just words on a piece of paper if there's not going to be any consequences. And sorry, I had one other thing. Oh yeah, so that letter from Fly, like there's literally a quote from one of the students who's been impacted by, you know, the school to prison pipeline, who literally said, like, you can know your rights and you can basically try to, like, you know, stand up like for your rights, like not be searched unreasonably or whatever. But like at the end of the day, the cop is just gonna like yell at you or like try to bully you or intimidate you because they know that they have the power. They have a gun, they have a taser, they have qualified immunity. Like, they behave that way because there's nothing to stop them or no real consequences for when they behave that way. And that is a major issue. That is not building relationships. Like, I don't want to hear that. Like, that shouldn't be happening to kids at school, period. So I think it's really good that we have the suspension going now. And I hope that the MOU will be a lot stronger in its language, holding police accountable for their actions or potentially firing them if they do something to one of our students that they do not need to be doing. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Samantha Avalon. Please go ahead.
Hello, board and city council. Yeah, I guess thank you for holding this space, but I would like to make, I guess, a complaint about the time that it's being held at. It's currently like 1:30 on a Monday, and I literally just like found out about the meeting a couple hours beforehand, it's just really concerning that you're having these talks about like community safety and child safety, but you're holding them at times and you're holding them at times that not a lot of people can go to. Like you work a city council job, so it's easy for you to hold these meetings on a Monday at 1 o'clock. But what about the parent that works like 2 full-time jobs? I would just like to point out that you're holding these times that it's really difficult for some people to show up at, and it's it's important that we hold them at times that are accessible to all, especially because we're talking about community safety, and especially because we're talking about the policing of Black and Latinx children in our community. So yeah, I just wanted to start off about that. And I also want to raise a question about how our school board says that we're about social equity and justice when we don't even have mandatory restorative justice trainings for like our teachers. That just doesn't make sense to me. And I was reading over the rights of the students that SSFUSD gave us in our handbook for the previous school year. And it says, Number 4, the right of a student is to attend school in an academic and social climate that is free from fear and violence, which is so confusing because you all try to push cops on us so much. How are you saying that our right as a student is to be free from fear and violence, but yet you put our oppressors in classrooms with us? You put them in our events, you put them in our dances, you put them in all of our climates, and you just expect us to be okay with it. It's really concerning. And also, I understand that you feel that you can just like, it's fine, it's not coming out of the school board budget, but in some cases, it's coming out of our budget. As an ASB student, like one of the biggest parts of planning our events is that budget that comes out of the police. We have to pay them like an hour beforehand or like 30 minutes and an hour after. It's just, it doesn't make sense because we could just easily hire security guards that are way cheaper and can actually keep us safe and unarmed. And I'm running out of time, but just off campus.
Thank you. Time has expired. That was the last speaker.
Thank you. And thanks to all of our speakers. Dr. Moore?
I think the next item is motion to approve the minutes.
Oh, sorry. Motion to approve the minutes. Do I have a motion?
So move, Madam Chair.
Second?
I'll second it.
All in favor? Roll call. Leilani, you're muted.
I think she noted.
Board Clerk Murray,
Yes.
Mayor Adiego,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Nogales.
Yes.
Motion carried. Okay. And next, Dr. Moore.
All right, this next item is discussion of the South San Francisco Unified and SSF PD School Liaison Officers MOU. And I'll start with just an overview of where we were and where we are currently. And then of course I invite our city manager and our staff to join in. So as many of you in our community knows that the South San Francisco Unified School Board directed staff to work on an MOU that would establish parameters for how the district and the SSF Police Department would interact and engage with one another, specifically as it relates to the SLO program. After the presentation of the previous MOU, which I believe took place in June, we took the feedback. We really heard from both school board members, city council members, staff, and many of the members of our community who spoke up about the MOU and their desires for different components to be called out more explicitly. So in this version of the MOU, we really worked hard to include specific information regarding the approach that we wanted to take, which was an anti-racist, anti-discriminatory one. You'll notice we added in specific sections that called out the intent to clearly articulate the roles between the two agencies, to clearly communicate the role of staff in South San Francisco Unified School District, and to clarify that we want them to follow an established set of expectations. And we didn't include those because these are things that we're working on internally. And then, of course, we wanted to be really clear so that our staff understands and knows when they should be contacting the police, the SLOs, and when they should not. So our school administration also understands their role in contacting the SSF school liaison officers, and how important it is that they also address and handle school disciplinary issues themselves, so that we're not, as we heard, constantly calling the police on items that we don't necessarily need the police's support with. And so that is called out in the MOU. And we also heard about a performance review. So we looked at that section and worked on tightening that up, as well as the assessment and evaluation of the program, so that we can get together and monitor the impact of the program and see if it's actually meeting the goals and the intent that we have established. So district staff, we were able to meet with city staff last Tuesday on the 20th to discuss all of the recommended revisions that the district made to the city staff. And then we felt comfortable enough to bring it forward and for the city subcommittee to have a dialogue around and to let us know if there's any additional insights. And so if I missed anything, I am happy to ask our city manager if I missed anything to chime in, or any of the staff members if I didn't appropriately cover the essence of the work that we've done.
And if I may, Madam Chair, dovetail into that first, thank you, Dr. Moore. I think that was a very concise and thorough summary. I appreciate that. But I'd also like to point out that throughout the MOU, you can see it's intended that city staff and school district staff will work together throughout the year on various issues such as training and other points. We did not put a lot of specifics like that in the MOU, but instead set up a process where we could work with each other collaboratively to get things like training and other issues, reporting requirements done, knowing that the MOU is, I liken it to the Constitution. It'll have to go both to the board and to the council, but knowing that every year we'll likely want to tweak it, whether it's the data we want collected and how it's presented to the public, or training or other issues. And I would say this is the first time we have memorialized that relationship, where the city and the police have invited the school district into our shop to help us craft the training for police officers and how the program has run. I think there's been a lot of collaboration in the past, but this formalizes this in a way that's very transparent, and that I think it speaks well that in the years to come, we can continue to refine this program to meet the intent that we all have to make this successful. I believe there is one amendment that we would like to propose today, and I don't know if Dr. Moore, your team will present that. This is relative to how the officers dress, and we are certainly willing to work with our officers to have a much more casual approach. And so as they're doing their job, they're not wearing the full-on uniform that you might see of a patrol officer. So Dr. Moore, do you have that final language that we worked on Friday? If not, our city attorney has it.
I do. The language that wasn't included, because we posted the agenda prior to going back and looking at this, was when serving in the role of a school liaison officer on school campuses, and when practical, officers will wear a designated alternate uniform to present a more casual appearance. Parenthetical reference, example, polo shirt with utility slacks. Officers may have all necessary safety equipment for the performance of their duties, to include a bullet-resistant vest worn under their clothing, and all use of force tools to allow for appropriate de-escalation. So that was added after the agenda was posted.
So we would like to add that, and it is not an absolute. There may be times when a school liaison officer has to respond to some other large emergency in the city, but I'd say by and large, almost without exception, we would prefer they have that casual look, and we'll work with the school system on what that would be. So we do have one amendment to what you have before you.
Thank you. So would we like to move into discussion? Mayor Diego? Mayor Diego, you're muted.
For the moment, I'll just defer to you, Pat.
Vice Mayor Nogales?
I'm sorry, are we ready to discuss this issue or that specific item that the city
No,
manager?
the MOU.
Okay, thank you. I do have some questions, so I'm ready to discuss. If you like me to start off, I'm fine, but
Okay, that's fine.
okay. So there was talk of training here, which I really appreciated, and it was mentioned throughout the MOU. But I can think the question of who pays for the training is something that I'm interested in, and I guess this is kind of an ongoing conversation. But if I can get some clarification on training, who would pay, I would appreciate knowing that.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I'll answer that. Heretofore, the city has always paid for the training of the officers. And I think upon reflection and hearing the public comment that would be the answer going forward. So I will work with the school district to design the training platform, if you will, or protocol that is appropriate. I would recommend the city just continue paying for the training for all of our officers and just keep it simple.
Is that, I guess, the question of the school district, that's okay moving forward, it sounds like. Okay, so if we could have that, I guess, in the MOU specifically, so it's clearly written, I would appreciate that. I think that would be really helpful. And then there was a question, let me go a little more in detail in terms of the MOU here. So in terms of the role of the school liaison officer and the responsibilities, it mentioned restraints and seclusion. And so maybe if I can get maybe a little more understanding of what that means. So let's just say if someone were to be arrested and having to do that in front of the school, I'm sure that would be traumatizing for a lot of the students who are witnessing that. And so it did mention that we try to avoid doing that during school hours. And I'm maybe if someone can explain to me, how would you do that if that scenario were to happen where someone would have to be arrested? Maybe Chief, if you can explain to me, how would you try to, I guess, not do that in a public setting?
So I think this is going to be much easier than it was in the past. Frankly, based on the numbers that I've talked about, the amount of people that actually have left campus in handcuffs in the last few years. It was one student in the last 2 years. That's prior to COVID. So that part is just we have adapted. I think the schools adapted our mindset a while ago on kind of the old mindset being, let's send a message to kids, which I never agreed with, to if we do need to, you're not going to certainly do it during lunch. You're not going to do it. You try to do it when the kids are in class. And that's kind of been the case for a while now. The bell rings, everyone's in class. So then really when you're walking the kid out, there's very few people that would see. Our goal actually going forward is to not have to take anyone out in handcuffs. It's strictly if this person has to leave campus with the police, there is no way, ifs, ands, or buts about it. I see us kind of walking him or her out and no one seeing them being placed in handcuffs. That is going to be kind of the absolute goal going forward. And there will be constant conversation during this we're never just there with the students. There's always assistant principals there, vice principals there, counselors. We're going to figure it out. So just, my goal would be that nobody sees anybody in handcuffs. Now there's always a situation that can happen where it is deemed that the safety of others or other students, teachers may change that, but it would be few and far between that situation would arise where the person would have to be in handcuffs.
So you kind of mentioned it in terms of an investigation. And so there's in the MOU, there was discussions about how an investigation, I guess, is conducted on campus. And there were kind of two different points that I kind of wanted to mention. So if, let's say, a school administrator requests an SLO to come and help, my understanding is because the school administrator initiated the assistance, I guess the questioning and potential search of, let's say, lockers would be on the responsibility of the school administrator. Is that correct?
100% correct. That's the way it's always been.
Okay. Now, if let's say a criminal act has been determined, I guess, through this process, is my understanding then the investigation, questioning and searching now becomes the SLO's responsibility? Is that correct? Am I reading that correctly?
Yes, you continue to work together because oftentimes what happened, if it happened on campus, is also an issue that the school district wants to be a part of and wants to know what happened. If it was something that happened, say, off campus, and you had to go to campus to talk to that student, that has nothing to do with the school. That's a criminal investigation. That would be the responsibility of the officer. But of the vast majority of times that you're called, it's a administrative type search that the school district has the authority over.
So just to clarify, so if a criminal activity happened outside of school and the police does an investigation, at times will they go on to, it sounds like they can go onto the campus and do questioning to the student?
Yes, we can. Yes, it's been done in the past. This is a practice that I don't foresee happening too much in the future. And the reason being is there was times when that was a place that we knew that we can locate them and talk to them, because oftentimes they could have been a witness or could have been a lot of other things. But that is something that both sides, the district and the police departments, have weaned off of, in the last few years. And it's something that I see also being something of the past, where it's just, we will do whatever we can to, if we need to speak with this person, not do it on campus.
So in the scenario where you have to do on campus.
Yes.
And you mentioned that there are times where you have to, because it's just, that's the scenario that's given. Does the student have a school administrator with them when they're being investigated?
Yes.
And being questioned?
Yes.
Okay. So there is someone there, and regardless if it's the school administrator that initiates the investigation or if the police starts their own independent investigation, there is someone there with them.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. I appreciate that. And then at what point do, let's say, a parent isn't notified that their child is being questioned by the police?
Well, before all of this happened, the laws have changed.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to interviewing juveniles, you don't do so without contacting parents, offering them, you have to read their rights immediately and offer them somebody, and you actually make a phone call to a county office to where there's somebody assigned to them immediately. The laws around interviewing juveniles, regardless of being at school or not, in the public, wherever, on the weekends, have drastically changed. So that does not occur anymore.
Okay.
Without contacting a responsible, either adult or somebody from the county for that.
Okay. And then I kind of wanted to ask questions about kind of this review process. So when I read it, it sounds like if there's a complaint regarding the SLO, it goes through a process. So essentially it goes to the SLO's supervisor and then the school administrator try to mediate to try to resolve it. That's the first step, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And if for whatever reason it doesn't get resolved, it goes to the next level, which potentially is you. Is that correct, Chief, and the school administrator? To try to resolve or potentially, I guess if you assign someone to it. I just want to clarify.
Yeah, it would initially go to the SLO supervisor.
Yeah.
With the person within the school district that has the issue. If it can't be resolved, then it's going to come. It would have already come to me anyways. I would have already heard about it. But it's going to come to me. I would then have become a part of this discussion. I'm sure we would set up a meeting. I'm sure either from Mr. Sievers all the way through to Dr. Moore, and it would be a sit down and what is going on, and ultimately try to see if this is a situation that can be fixed. And if it ultimately cannot be fixed, then there needs to be a decision made about this SLO. But that will be my decision with the school district. Bottom line, if the school district was uncomfortable with someone who is a school liaison officer and they did not want them on their campuses, I'm not going to have them on their campuses.
So just to clarify, so if there's a disagreement between you and say the school district in terms regarding an SLO, you're saying that even if you disagree in terms of just working with relationships with the school district, you potentially could remove that SLO officer and assign a new person. Is that what I'm understanding?
So in this hypothetical scenario,
Yeah,
that would be the first time it's happened in 40 years. Yes, if we could not come to a point that the school district was comfortable with this officer being an SLO, then I'm not going to have this officer be an SLO.
Okay. And then, and again, there's something about in terms of the contract that I was interested in. It says that, you know, as the city manager actually also mentioned too, this is the kind of like a living document in a sense, and that every year this is going to be reviewed. And I'm wondering, I'm sure there's going to be changes as this goes. So it is going to probably go to the subcommittee for review and then to the city council and the school district. And they mentioned that, you know, if there wasn't, I guess, any changes, it would be automatically approved. Now, I'm wondering if it makes sense to not say automatic review, that it actually goes to the subcommittee for review. And if the subcommittee was okay with that, then potentially that goes to the school district and the city council for approval. So there's that kind of checks and balances moving forward. And I don't know how my colleagues would feel about that on the subcommittee. It's a question to Trustee Murray and the mayor.
It could go to the subcommittee if that's at the pleasure of the city council and the school board. I think that having our staffs review it is a good enough checks and balances, but that's my opinion.
Yeah, it seems, Ms. Murray, I think you're correct that at any time the subcommittee could ask to review the MOU. So I don't know if it has to be formalized. I was interested in Chief Azzopardi's response to arrests on campus. Did you mention that there was one arrest? You said in the last 3 years, but obviously we're not counting the previous school year. One arrest in the entire unified school district in those previous 2 years?
So to clarify, yes, there was two, one of which was a teacher. So one student.
Well, yes, I think I remember the teacher one. What are the circumstances with the student? Do you recall?
Yes, the student brought brass knuckles. Well, he didn't bring brass knuckles. He used a lock, like a lock to a locker, in the form of brass knuckles on his fist, and he punched another student several times.
That seems violent enough to warrant an arrest. So, okay.
I'm done with my questions. So
okay. Well, I don't really have any questions. Mayor, do you?
No, I honestly don't. I mean, I think it's great that we're, focused on these extreme circumstances, and then it turns out there are so few. I'm not going to share what I'm really thinking right now. So,
okay. Well, I thought it was a wonderful collaboration, personally, and I want to thank City Manager Futrell and Superintendent Moore and staff who worked on it. I thought that it was student-centered. It discussed student rights, anti-racism, accountability, training. So I thought it was an excellent collaboration. It's not 100% of what the school district might want or what the city might want, but that's what collaboration is. Somebody had said something about relationship building, and in my opinion, relationship building is an important an important skill for students to learn. And it is part of education. So I think that that's important. So with that, what would be the next steps? We add in the extra thing about how they dress, the extra clause or thing about how they dress. And was there anything that Mayor Diego or Vice Mayor Nogales, you wanted to change? I thought I heard.
Trustee Murray, nothing that I want to change, but looking at the process moving forward, I had asked at the previous subcommittee meeting, I think
Will each go to our
Dr. Spalding respond when I asked if we don't have an agreed upon MOU that's signed off on both the city and the school board, will the officers be on campus? And I think at that time, Dr. Spalding, well, I'll ask him again. Do you remember how you responded, sir?
I believe there wasn't an agreement that we would not be calling the police and they would not be responding at this time and until the MOU was approved.
That's how you responded at the previous meeting?
I'm not the exact words, but that is what I recall, is essentially that we would move forward with not calling the police or using police at this time until MOU was approved.
Okay,
I'd like to.
So different from my recollection.
I'll just add that my understanding, and again, I'd have to go back to the minutes. I don't specifically have those in my hand at this moment, but to what Dr. Spalding is saying is that we're talking about those consultative type situations that are in the non-mandatory, that do not meet the definition of Penal Code 245, et cetera. So something that is an immediate safety concern or something like that, of course, that would still follow standard procedures for notifications. But in situations where administrators have sort of their scope of discretion is applicable to the situation, and then they are calling in a consultative manner for police assistance, I think that's what we're talking about, that we would just proceed with our standard internal procedures as they always would be.
But you don't envision that the SLOs would be on campus without an MOU, is that correct?
I can actually, if you want, Mr. Siebers, because there's been an actual conversation recently, so I can give an update. And so the conversation that the school board had most recently was that without an assigned MOU in place by both agencies, that the program would be suspended until we could get the MOU signed and in place. That was the latest information that happened 2 weeks ago, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So Dr. Moore, we were chatting earlier and mentioned that in 3 weeks, your students are back to school. And so if I'm to do my due diligence in trying to ratify this MOU, so you do have SLO's officers there and the program's not suspended, I need to act this week because we're not meeting in the first part of August. What are your board's plans? I guess I'm asking Trustee Murray, what are your plans?
Well, I'm sure that we could move forward with a special meeting if everybody was in agreement with, although I am just one person, but we can generally move forward with a special meeting if everybody's in agreement with.
Okay, so I'm going to do my part, so it's really in your court. that we'll
Okay.
act this Wednesday. We'll add something to the agenda of the MOU so that we can act on it. And then it'll be up to the board to make it happen or not.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you, Patty.
So with that, unless there are any other comments or questions,
I would like to raise that Vice Mayor Nogales suggested an amendment about the cost. I don't know if Vice Mayor, you'd like to pursue that now or.
Yeah, I think just to have that in writing, I think is important because there's been questions about that. I think from our side and also from the school district side, just to clarify that, I think would be good.
In that training section, then we can add an amendment that the city of South San Francisco will bear the cost of training SLOs, period, if that's acceptable.
And that training is by agreement between the district and the city.
That's correct.
Okay, no problem with the language.
Dr. Moore?
I don't have anything else to add, but thank you.
Okay, so with that, I will adjourn the meeting and we will try and do what we can do.
If I may.
Okay.
Thank you. So when this comes before our city council, do I represent that this version with the 2 amendments that we have talked about is endorsed by the liaison committee, or do I just say considered by? How would I reference the actions today when passing that on to the other council members?
Mayor Diego, I think it has been endorsed by the subcommittee.
Okay.
Vice Mayor Nogales?
Yes. Do we need to take a vote on it just for procedural purposes? I'm not quite sure.
Sure. So, do you want to make a motion?
You can if you
want. Well,
You're leading the charge on this, Mark. Go ahead and make the motion.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to approve the MOU between the school district and the city council with the two amendments mentioned.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor? Roll call?
Board Clerk Murray,
Yes.
Mayor Diego,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Nogales.
Yes.
Motion carried. So I guess it has been endorsed now by the subcommittee.
Thank you.
And with that, unless there are any other comments or questions, I'll adjourn the meeting. Are there any? Okay,
Nope.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you for coming, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye.